Good morning, Husker fans, and welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. We are live here on Facebook and YouTube on this Monday morning, and we're here to discuss Nebraska football recruiting and everything else that has to do with Nebraska athletics. So we've got a few things going on here, a few recruiting misses last week, a few new targets developing here for the Huskers. Not new targets, but new developments, I guess, with some of the top targets on the board. So we're going to get into all that. Valdin Sone, Calvin Thomas, Darian Jones. So if you haven't already, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comments, let us know what you think about Nebraska football recruiting or anything else that you'd like to talk about here in this live chat for about the next 30 minutes or so. Joining me today is Danny Gillette, as always, my co-host. And how are you today, Danny, on this Monday morning?
I'm good. Did you enjoy your long weekend?
Yeah, it was nice. 4th of July. Had a good time celebrating the good old USA.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Lots of food, lots of barbecue, nice little cookout, warm weather here, so it was pretty good. It actually didn't rain here for the first time in, I don't know, 4 months on the weekend, so that counted for something.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning,
Morning,
James, one
James.
of our usual followers, listeners. Good to see you again. Go Big Red. And yeah, if you guys are watching on Facebook or YouTube, hop in the chat, give us a Go Big Red, let us know where you're watching from. But yeah, a lot of things happening on the recruiting trail over this 4th of July weekend for Nebraska, or at least since our last recording. So yeah, I would say a few misses. Not terrible. Let's start, I guess, with Darian Jones, who committed to Iowa on Friday, the 4th of July. And of course, Iowa fans thought that was the greatest thing ever, which I thought was kind of funny. I mean, I get that they beat Nebraska head to head, but we just landed Grant Brix, the top recruit from their class. I mean, so it's been a while since Iowa's landed anybody like that from Nebraska. And with Darian Jones, I think that Nebraska did a pretty good job. I still feel like if they had offered him like back in the fall, much earlier than everybody, if they had made him feel like a priority, I think that this recruitment might have gone differently. But maybe he also, didn't want to play with his brother. I mean, people always assume that somebody wants to play with their brother, but that's not always the case. He maybe wanted to have a different path, and you could see the announcement. They'll have an interesting rivalry over the next few years. But what does this mean, I guess, for Nebraska and for their kind of recruiting board, Danny?
For Darian Jones?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I didn't really think much of it. Their cornerback room is not full, but has a lot of good depth right now. And I do think it's funny that Iowa fans are celebrating this. I mean, he is a really good player, but it's not like I don't see this as a big recruiting win for them. If they had kept Grant Brix home going to Iowa, for example, that would have been something. But I'm very comfortable with the corner depth that they have this season and beyond. I know they're still looking at some 2027 corners, but I mean, this one I don't really see as a huge loss. I mean, they got in on him late, but to me, that's because they felt that they were comfortable with what they have on the roster right now. And it is going to make for some interesting Thanksgiving dinners, to say the least, with the Jones brothers. But I think Donovan is a big reason why, I feel comfortable with the depth. I think he's a really good player. He showed it in the Pinstripe Bowl, and, Bryson Weber, Larry Tarver, Amari Sanders. I think we're okay at the corner spot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I mean, I think that they're pretty good at cornerback, but even so, taking one cornerback in a class is, that's a little worrisome to me. That's just a position where you can never. That's one of those you can never have enough players.
Yeah.
Cornerback and pass rusher. So it's not a huge loss, but I mean, looking at this class and where it's at, I mean, I do think it would have been nice to add a player ranked 548th overall who would be one of the top commitments in this class right now, especially, number 2 in the state. And, it's not that big of a deal. Nebraska didn't really prioritize him that much. And I think that's part of the reason why he ended up going to Iowa. They, like I said, if they had offered him during the fall, I don't think this recruitment would have got to this point.
Yeah.
But that also, was a reflection of, how they view him. So, at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to be a super heartbreaker, and Iowa does make a lot of sense. I mean, they've had a lot of defensive backs, going to the NFL and different things like that. So from a player development standpoint, I mean, I can understand, why he would go to Iowa. He would have been the 5th highest ranked commitment in the class so far. So just in the second in the state of Nebraska. But yeah, I don't think it's a huge miss. I think Devin Jackson is obviously a much bigger miss in my opinion for Nebraska. So, and he also, I think that was July 3rd when he committed to Oregon. And I know there had been talk that Nebraska was still going to recruit him, and they might, but he said that his recruitment is a 100% shut down. And I think one thing that people need to realize too is, I keep seeing these comments from people being like, oh, these commitments don't matter and these things are going to flip. Well, I think you're going to see I truly believe you're going to see less flips than you've ever seen before, because these guys are getting locked in with money. These commitments are getting locked in with deals. They're signing contracts. So, I mean, they can go ahead and flip, but it's not going to be as easy to flip now when you have, I mean, is Felix Ojo, okay, he just signed whatever, $5 million or whatever it was that his agent put out there. So now if he wants to flip to Texas, that's not going to be that simple. So I think people really need to, I know that they're all worried about this money and stuff, but these guys are signing contracts. They're signing NIL and rev share contracts. And so I don't think we're going to see a bunch of flips going forward.
It's taken us 3 years to explain offensive line depth, Chris. I think we're going to have to keep explaining this rev share and lack of flipping till we're blue in the face. So I wouldn't hold your breath on people understanding that quite yet. But yeah, I'm not surprised. It's hard to say no to Oregon money and Oregon in general. I mean, right now they're one of the premier teams in college football and in the Big Ten. I thought honestly, Danny Odom was the big land for me. I thought Devin Jackson would have been a nice addition, but I'm not surprised at all that he went to Oregon.
And I mean, I guess with I look at it, I mean, safety, I think, is a bit more of a concern. I mean, like next year, they're going to have some guys step up.
Yeah, I agree. I agree
there. So, I mean, yeah, he would have been a nice piece. I mean, they do have Caleb Benning from last year's class, so hopefully he can develop into a starting, caliber player. Maybe Mario Buford might be a safety as well. We'll see. But and he could maybe be, a nickel back like Malcolm Hartzog. But yeah, so that one hurt just because he had such a close connection to Danny Odom, and I really was hoping that they would be able to get him. They got him on campus a couple of times, but yeah, Oregon went out there, so that was disappointing. But there's still some.
Don't forget about Premier Stewart too. That's safety.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But it's still, it would be nice if they could have got a player like Jackson. I mean, because they, I don't know that they really have another safety quite like that on this roster, or that anybody that's kind of been committed that's quite of that ability. I mean, this, he's like 6'1" or 6'2". I think he's really underrated. Even though he is, a fairly high ranked 4-star, like he to me looks like, an early round draft pick in the future. So I wish that John Butler had got a chance to work with him, but that's how it works out. So moving forward, I would say that there's a few big targets left on the board. There's Valdin Sone, Calvin Thomas. We'll get to him in a minute. To Darius Hughes, Cameron Wilson. I don't believe that Cameron Wilson's reaffirmed his commitment to Syracuse. He did take a visit there, but
yeah,
as far as I know, he's still, that's still something Nebraska's trying to get done. They're still hoping they can get him back for a visit this fall. The same with Darius Hughes, and they do need to, get a few of these guys, because I don't think you want to sign a class where they're at right now. It's 12 commitments. Probably going to be 11 once Bonwell Whitty finally decommits. I think that's
because he was a McGuire guy anyway. I'm surprised he stayed this long.
So yeah, and he didn't make an official visit, which is pretty strange for a player committed that long. So truly, I think Nebraska's working with like 11 commitments. So it would be nice if they could, get up to about 15, or at least, add some more blue chip prospects. And they were so with Valdin Sone, his I don't know if it's his representative, but Brandon Collier is kind of the guy that, he's kind of a coach mentor type. So he released images of Valdin Sone in 4 different uniforms: Nebraska, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, which I think is pretty significant with where we're at in this recruitment. According to Sean Callahan, this is down to Nebraska and Georgia at this point. So it's a Nebraska Georgia battle, which doesn't surprise me. I know a lot of people thought that was like a done deal because of Florida, because they led via the On3 prediction machine, but you can't look at that as a guaranteed deal. That thing changes all the time, and sometimes the predictions they get out of date. So I know that Florida's been in it, but according to Sean Callahan of Husker Online, it's a Nebraska Georgia battle, and I would give the edge to Georgia. I mean, a lot of these guys, these Collier guys, end up going to SEC programs, but he sent quite a few to the Big Ten as well. So I don't know. It's going to take a good amount of NIL money to get this done. But he would be the crown jewel of this class if they could reel him in. I mean, 6'2", 320 pounds. I mean, that's the kind of defensive lineman they really haven't landed under Matt Rule, and it would be great to see them, get this guy. I know that, Terry Braden went over to Sweden. That's one thing I've kind of talked about is Terry Braden is in kind of a tough spot because, he just was hired in January or February, and he had the Super Bowl. So he really couldn't start working till February. And I mean, if you look at this recruiting class, so he basically had, February, March, April, May, and he had 5 months basically to try to build relationships in this recruiting class. So that's probably one reason why you're not really seeing a lot of movement with Nebraska with the line recruits, because that's a tough situation to be in. So he has made a strong effort with Valdin Sone, and you can see that he made the trip to Sweden. They've done, I think, as much as they can, and hopefully they can reel him in, because that would be a massive get, and this recruiting class would look much better if he was signed in it.
Yeah, for sure. He's a dynamic defensive lineman, and he would definitely be the crown jewel of the class. He's extremely athletic. He can rush the passer, stop the run, do it all. And, Nebraska and Georgia, I would have to give the edge to Georgia too, but you never know. It's not about what you do throughout the recruitment necessarily as how you close. And Nebraska's been good at closing, and hopefully they can do that here.
Yeah, that would be a home run. So in terms of another recruit where Nebraska maybe isn't closing as well, Calvin Thomas, the 4-star, linebacker, edge, and man, it's a bummer, because the more I watch his film, the more I watch his highlights, the more I want him on this team, because we've talked about it before, but Nebraska, another area they've struggled, I would say, under Matt Rule recruiting is pass rushers. I mean, they did get Jordan Ochoa last year, who's done decently well. I know they got Dason McCullough out of the transfer portal and Williams Nweri out of the transfer portal, but they really haven't, landed like a big time pass rusher, I would say, as a high school recruit. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just not remembering, but I can't remember a lot of blue chip, pass rushing types that they've landed over the past few years. So to me, when I'm looking at, Calvin Thomas, and man, it's like, I'm not that surprised that he's going to Bill Belichick and the Patriots, because he reminds me of some of those pass rushers they've had over the years. I think this guy would be a perfect jack. I think he had 8.5 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks, but you can just really see the natural bend that he has. Nebraska did, as recently as Saturday, they got a crystal ball from Brian Christopherson, but then Sean Callahan, Brian Munson, and Tim Verges all switched their picks to North Carolina. Hasn't committed yet. That's set for July 12th, so it's possible Nebraska can, come back and pull something off there, but looks like North Carolina's pulled ahead in this recruitment. So what do you think about, what's been happening with Calvin Thomas?
Well, it's hard to say no to Bill Belichick, especially if you're a defensive player. I mean, there is that. I mean, you're going to work with one of the greatest defensive minds of all time, so I'm not necessarily surprised. But, I do think that he would have been a great fit at Nebraska. And, I'm talking at least like he's committed to North Carolina, yet he's not. I know there's been articles that have been going around. And honestly, quick aside, these websites will create articles for engagement that are not true. So unless you see it on the internet, you'll see these links, player committed or player got in trouble or stuff like that. They're not necessarily true, so just be careful what you read, especially during recruiting season, because a lot of these look really convincing. But anyway, Thomas, I think he would fit really well, or would fit really well in this Huskers defense. With that being said, we are kind of stacked at linebacker right now, so this could be a case where he views this as an opportunity to get more playing time in North Carolina. If there's one position that I feel like we're really front loaded at, it is linebacker.
I mean, I don't know, because it's like there's linebacker and then there's Jack, and I mean there's Willis McGahee. I mean, after this year, they got Dason McCullough, and after this year you got Willis McGahee, and then Jordan Ochoa. I mean, Jordan Ochoa. You got some other guys there, but I wouldn't. I definitely think they need pass rushers on this defense, and Calvin Thomas would have been perfect. I mean, you look at, if you're not going to get Cameron Wilson from Syracuse, which hopefully they can get him. But I think that Calvin Thomas would have, been along those same lines. So yeah, I mean, he's 254th overall, 4-star linebacker. Definitely more of a pass rusher, maybe even an edge. And he can play other linebacker spots too, which I think would make him, a great player. To come in behind McGahee. So there's still time. Hopefully they can, turn this one around. But if they do miss on him, then they really have to get that kid from Syracuse, because other than that, it's like they're going to have to go back, start from scratch, this time around. That happens a lot. You can find good players, but that's going to be even more difficult to do now with the way things are. So we'll see. But yeah, let's look to so James here has a question about the transfer portal. Now, we said now that they threw the transfer portal, or that the new transfer portal is opening up, I'm guessing, or now that the transfer portal is opening up, is there a chance Nebraska may go to the transfer portal? So with the transfer portal, there's basically a new kind of window that's opened up, and it's for players who essentially aren't going to be on the roster. So like if Nebraska, didn't want to have a guy on the roster who's not going to, basically, I mean, it's kind of difficult to explain it, but the way that I understand it is like if Nebraska wants to get rid of you, essentially, you can be protected and go to another program and still, have your roster spot saved. I mean, I guess you could leave anyway. I don't know if the program necessarily has to endorse it. I'd have to look more into that, but I don't see Nebraska adding any of these guys. I mean, these are going to be bottom of the barrel. Not to be mean to them or anything, but these are going to be the bottom of the roster guys from other programs. So I really don't see Nebraska having any interest in any of those guys.
No, I think what you see with this roster is what you're going to get, and I think it's going to be important that they develop from within. And overall, I like the way this defense looks, for example, because I know we're talking about linebackers, but I think they did a really good job this last transfer portal cycle of filling some needs.
And I could see, going back to James' question, I could see some Nebraska players leaving via this new transfer portal. If it's just if they feel like they're not going to play, or if they're outside the 105 man, not really even roster limit, but I mean, if you're the 120th guy on this roster, that might be you might consider transferring. I mean, probably not at Nebraska, because you have more guys that grew up and just really want to be Huskers, but if you're the 120th guy on Michigan's roster, it might be a chance for you to transfer and go somewhere else, and you're not gonna add a roster spot somewhere else. So I don't think you're gonna see a ton of movement out of that portal, James. Just FYI, but you could see some Nebraska players leave if they're not going to play very much, or if they want a chance to play somewhere else.
Yeah, it's going to make for some interesting decisions moving forward, and there are some guys that have been here, for a little bit that could decide to go, but we'll see how it all shakes out. I mean, this is looking more and more like the NFL every day. So, I mean, it's just the new college football now.
Yep, it's the way that teams are building rosters. Yeah, definitely much different. And I do think Nebraska is going to try to, probably add more guys in the transfer portal. I mean, I think that's just realistic going forward, but you still want to build your team from high school recruiting. I mean, I really believe that the best teams, they build their teams with high school recruits. And I mean, you look at the teams who are ranked in the top 10 every year. I mean, those are the teams that are basically ranked in the top 10 when the regular season rolls around. I mean, not always. I mean, I understand there's fluctuations, but if you look at the top 10 rankings right now, and most of the teams outside of like USC have had a lot of success, and USC, outside of the past couple of years, I know they've been down, but that they were, with Lincoln Riley's first couple of years, they were in the Pac-12 championship game,
Yep.
or maybe the first year. So, I mean, they've had more success. They've had more success over the last 5 years than we have, than we've even sniffed in the last 20. So, like, I know it's easy to say, oh, like USC's struggling and they're down, but like USC's down is still a lot better than Nebraska's has been over the past like 15 years. So, I mean, I get the fascination with the transfer portal, but I don't think, like with rev share and stuff, I think the portal's gonna become less and less of a thing. I still think you're gonna see players out of there, but like I don't know that you're gonna see all these impact players like hit the portal. I mean, they're already going to be getting that money from whatever school they're at now. So I just don't know that trying to save yourself or trying to save a ton of resources for the transfer portal is going to be a great idea.
I mean, I could definitely agree, but at some point, you got to view it on a year-by-year basis and not necessarily about developing kids. And I get that developing players are important and developing high school careers are important, but nowadays there's no guarantee that they're going to stay. So I don't think, and I'm not saying you personally, but just, generally speaking, I don't think you can necessarily count on high school classes anymore as much as you could have. And the reason why USC recruited so well in high school is because they've been far more relevant in terms of a brand and overall program over the last 15 years or so.
I mean, I think that their success this year is come down to money. I mean, their success has something to do with it, like in the past, but I think more than anything, they got on the NIL train. So, I mean, like that's where it is.
Earlier than we did, and we got on the NIL train very late.
So I mean, and Chad Shepard, USC is way better than the Huskers, and the Huskers are a dying program. So I'm probably not a Nebraska fan, but I definitely don't agree with that statement that the Huskers are a dying program. I mean, they sell out the stadium every week, and they're definitely on the rise. So I mean, I wouldn't say they're a dying program. You could have said that about USC in the 90s, man. I mean, USC in the 90s basically is what Nebraska is now. I mean, they were a forgotten program. And then Pete Carroll came there and he turned everything around. So, I mean, I'm not saying that Matt Rule is going to be our Pete Carroll, but I definitely don't think Nebraska. I mean, it's been probably part of the Walking Dead, I would say, for like the last 15 years. It's definitely been not where it used to be, but it's not a dying program. I definitely think it's coming back up. Especially, they just if it was a dying program, I don't think they would just have landed one of the best quarterbacks in the 2027 class. So, I mean, and that's another thing is I know that the 2026 class isn't looking great, but 2027 will be better. And one of the reasons, you've got Terry Braden, you've got some of these assistant coaches will have been there longer. Tequil Shorts. I mean, it's still, even though he's a great recruiter and he's still getting good players, it still makes it more difficult when you're trying to establish that relationship, because relationships really do matter in recruiting, probably more now than ever, I would say. I think recruiting is getting more, like it was 10 years ago now, because everybody has money. Every single program has money. I mean, I know that some have a little bit more than others, but for the most part, everybody's got money. So it really comes down to relationships and fits and who's going to, win a lot of these recruitments. I mean, Syracuse just beat Michigan out for a 5-star recruit. And I don't think it had a damn thing to do with money, because Michigan's paying as much money as anybody. It's because Fran Brown, the Syracuse head coach, had a better relationship with the kid. That's what happened. And so as much as we want to say every recruitment's about money, they're not that much anymore, because everybody has it. Almost every program that's competing for these kids has money. So, I mean, yeah, some might be willing to pay a bit more for one player than another, but for the most part, I don't think money is winning a lot of these recruitments.
I agree, and I definitely think that that relationships matter, and also staying consistent throughout the recruitment matters too. And yeah, I was very surprised to hear about Calvin Russell. He's a really good receiver, and so good for Syracuse, because they have shown that they can develop talent at times too. But anyway, relationships do matter, and I do think you're going to see it matter more over these next couple of years. And I do think the 2027 class is going to be a very, very good one. That's why I'm not too worried about the 2026 class. But it will be interesting to see what direction the 2026 class takes, if they land any more guys or if they just have this base of players that they have right now. And by and large, I do think that this class definitely has some hidden gems and obviously some very talented players like Claude and Puma and, guys like that. So I'm interested to see where this class goes. I know a lot of people are down on it, but, I just see it as a bridge year to 2027 because by then, Terry Braden, DeKeel Shorts, the newer guys will have had a year in the program and a chance to build relationships.
Yeah, I mean that'll definitely help. And we'll see. It would be nice to get some of these other guys. Valdin Sone, Calvin Thomas. I mean they really need to start, getting some defensive line, edge types like that. So hopefully they can do that moving forward. I mean, they did get Dawson Merritt, who definitely could probably play that jack role, if they really needed him to, I think. So, there's definitely some pieces in the pipeline, but it would be nice to start seeing them, like the big programs that win, like the Georgias. I mean, like how do you make the playoff and have consistent success in the playoff? I mean, outside of having great quarterbacks, it's having great D line play. I mean, that's where it is. I mean, look, all the great teams, Ohio State, you look at, Michigan 2 years ago, Georgia when they were winning championships, Alabama, or the teams that even make it there, they have really good defensive lines. Their defensive lines are filled with blue chip recruits. And that's where, Nebraska definitely, I think, needs to improve under Matt Rule. They just have not got enough of those guys. I mean, look at the line right now. Like Riley Van Poppel was one. He was a blue chip, although he really wasn't a Matt Rule recruit. But still, I mean, he was signed in that first class with Matt Rule. But after that, like, who are some of the other guys that are blue chips? I mean, they got Dawson Merritt, like an edge / linebacker. But I'm just trying. They just haven't had a lot of those. You know what I mean? Those like top 200 to 300 defensive linemen, and it maybe wasn't as big of a need when you had Ty Robinson. Excuse me, and Nash Hutmaker, and I know they're only a 3-man front, but you still need like those elite type of dudes. So that's why Valdin Sone is on my radar, because that's, he's the kind of guy that you need to land if you're going to start competing with these major programs. And like when Matt Rule talks about like I'm trying to recruit guys to beat Ohio State, well, that's the kind of kid you need to get. And Devin Jackson's the kind of kid that you need to get. And Calvin Thompson's the kind of kid that you need to get. And you're not getting them right now. So, I mean, like, I do understand your point in the 2026 class, but I would like to see some more, like, I don't mind a smaller class, but you do have to hit on some of these kids. So I don't know.
Let's be honest here. Are you going to go to Oregon or are you going to go to Nebraska?
I mean,
I would go to Oregon in a heartbeat. I mean,
yeah, but not everybody's going to do that, though. I mean, you still have to win some of those battles, though. Like, regardless,
sure.
Like, I mean,
but who has more money, Nebraska or Oregon?
I mean, I think Nebraska could have money if they wanted to. I mean, with specific recruits, like, I think that they could outspend. I think they could outspend Oregon for Devin Jackson if they really wanted to.
I mean, you're talking about the Nike money, and that does make a huge difference.
Yeah. I mean, to a point, but but it's not like they're going to break the bank for every kid in the class, though. I mean, like,
and when you talk about NIL, Nebraska got started really, really late in the game too. So I think they're still trying to play catch up there, and it's not helping them right now.
See, I mean, I get to a point. I don't think NIL is a huge reason why Nebraska is missing on some of these. Like, some of it, yeah, maybe to a point. Like, if you get up to there may be Oregon's maybe willing to go farther than Nebraska, but I just go back to what Matt Rule said, and he talked about this class. Like, I'm going to get I'm recruiting players to beat Ohio State. Well, who are those guys in this class? Claude and Puma. I mean, that's really it. So they've got one. I mean, so it's just
maybe Danny Odom.
Yeah, Danny Odom. You're right. Yeah, Danny Odom would be two. And maybe Nealon Scott, would be another one in that realm. But
Larry Miles, I think too, could be a guy.
Potentially, yeah. But just talking about, like, that was Matt Rule's kind of reasoning or his response when people were talking about, like, oh, why aren't you recruiting, in-state players like Darian Jones? Okay, well, I'm recruiting players to beat Ohio State. Well,
Darian Jones to beat Ohio State. Let's be real here with that too. I mean, a guy like Jet Tamalia, maybe, but we're already loaded at quarterback. But Darian Jones isn't going to help you beat Ohio State. Ohio State will run right by him.
I mean, potential, but I mean, you could say the same thing about Larry Miles then. I mean, like, if that's just based on ranking, I mean, they're ranked about the same, so like, is one player that much better? Like, it's neither here nor there, but when you look at this class, I mean, if that's the measuring stick that we're using, I don't think that Matt Rule's delivered on that in this class. I mean, I don't think that that's debatable.
I don't think he's delivering on this in this class. I think it's the next class. I think this class is just a filler, considering they have 90 underclassmen. I do think we're gonna have to see some development from those underclassmen, but I don't think this class is anything to be worried about yet, given how the rest of the timeline is going to play out.
Yeah, and I'm not worried about the numbers as much, but yeah, I would like to still see some more of these blue chip prospects for sure. And like I've said before, I mean, I don't know that you can treat any class like I just think high school recruiting is too important. So I mean, I do think that there are quality players in this class, but I also understand why a lot of people feel like this class hasn't met expectations. And I think part of that is because Matt Rule kind of set that expectation. Like, he kind of made this point of like, well, we're too good to recruit some of these Nebraska players. You know what I mean? Like, he kind of said that, not so many words, but he didn't say that, but he did kind of say that. Am I wrong in that? Am I wrong in the way that I viewed that?
I mean, I think he more so said it as to say, like, we're not going to recruit a kid just because he's from Nebraska. And I still think he's a little bit wary based on how the 2023 class ended out, because that was his first big Nebraska push, and a lot of them aren't here anymore. So I do think, there is this consensus that, people want him to recruit from Nebraska, but I also think he might have just wanted to take a step back and expand the board nationally a little bit, because a lot of those kids didn't pan out from 2 years ago. I really do think they're not buyer's remorse, but I do think there might have been some hesitation, because of that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. And I mean, if that's the case, like, I don't I don't think it's just because some of those guys didn't hit is, a huge, because I mean, look, at the end of the day, 3 of those guys were receivers, and you had a dude that was coaching wide receivers who had no clue what he was doing. So, I mean, if we're going to talk about development and these players missing, I mean, I think that the fact that they had probably one of the worst wide receiver coaches in the country really needs to be factored into that, because I think if you had Tequil Shorts here, maybe some of these other guys would still be here.
Right, but look at where they ended up. I think McMorris went to what, South Missouri State?
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but
And
just
that's not a shot at
because,
McMorris. That if if this was like a Wandale Robinson situation where Wandale went and he ended up going to Kentucky and going to the NFL and performing really well, then I could look back and say Nebraska kind of failed here, but I'm not sure. Like, it's tough because you do want a lot of these in-state kids, but I think when you look overall, that 2023 class still looms a little bit large.
I mean, I just think you need to evaluate each player. And, if you missed on Isaiah McMorris, I mean, I think you just missed on an evaluation, or maybe it had to do with part evaluation and part your coaching wasn't very good. So, I mean, it can be multiple factors, but I think if you're but looking at this 2026 class, and if your, idea is like, to get players to help us beat Ohio State, I just don't know how much they've really done that in this particular class. So, I mean, I don't think that doesn't mean just because a guy's a 3-star doesn't mean that they can't. Michigan literally beat Ohio State with 2 dudes who, because Mason Graham, when he was committed to Michigan, was a 3-star ranked in the 800s. Kenneth Grant was ranked outside the top 500. And those 2 guys went in the top 15. And they're the biggest reasons why Michigan beat Ohio State in 2023 and 2024. Rod Moore is another guy. Ohio State didn't want to give him the time of day, and he's from the state of Ohio. And guess who picked off the pass to clinch the win against them in 2023? Rod Moore, 3-star. You know what I mean? And he's a guy who's being talked about as a before he tore his ACL, a first-round pick. So you can find 3-stars and turn them into guys that are good on that level. So just because you have a class of 3-stars doesn't mean that they can't turn into that. It's difficult to take an entire class of those guys. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Michigan had those guys, but they also had the JJ McCarthy's and the Blake Corums and the Aiden Hutchinsons and all these other guys. So, I mean, but you can do it. I mean, like Mike Stain Riestel, who went in the second round, like that dude was probably ranked in the 1500s, and guess what? He was recruited as a receiver. So I mean, just it like the rankings don't always matter. So that's why, like, I mean, I don't know. Recruiting can be a difficult thing to to evaluate, but I do wish that they, with some of these big recruitments, like they need to find a way to start winning some of them. And like
I
Calvin
agree.
Thomas and Valdin Sone would be like, I feel like if you get those two guys, then this class feels a lot different. So I don't know. I just, because I feel like it's because it's a smaller class, like they need to land some of those quality guys, and they just haven't quite landed enough. I do like Claude and Puma though, and I do like some of these. I really like the receivers. I do like Danny Odom. I really like the offensive line pickups. So even though some of those guys are like lower rated, I still like them. But I don't know that they've necessarily achieved all their objectives in this class, I guess.
If this is a trend that continues next year, then I'll be worried, but I'm not necessarily worried about this class. I think you're going to see a lot of names that have been buried on the roster over the past season or two, or even just last year. I think you're going to see them. I think you're going to hear their names a little bit more. A guy like Donovan Jones, a guy like Demetrius Bell. Players like that we haven't necessarily heard about. I think they're going to take on bigger roles this year.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think that's, part of it. They have a lot of, young guys that need to step up. So, yeah, hopefully they will deliver this season. And I do think, with some more on-field success, and with Trey Taylor, I think the 2027 class does have a chance to be pretty special. So, yeah, I definitely, no reason to panic. I mean, just because, we might want a little more out of a recruiting class. Like, I don't think this is, I think the people who are like freaking out about this class, I think there's a little bit of an overreaction. I do understand that, yes, maybe it hasn't quite met expectations from a realistic standpoint, but that's only, but there's still time, there's still time to get some other guys, if they could flip, a Tadarius Hughes, a Cameron Wilson.
That's a guy I'm watching, Tadarius Hughes, because it seems like they're very interested in him, and he would fill a quarterback need.
I really like him. Well, I think he could play. I think he could play safety too. I think he could be that nickel type. He's a hard hitter. I really like that about his game. Is I like cornerbacks that can hit. So reminds me of, excuse me, a Malcolm Hartzog, but like a 6'1" Malcolm Hartzog, and more athletic. I mean, because there's a reason Malcolm Hartzog was a 3-star recruit.
Hartzog, like I said a couple shows ago or a couple months ago, but that's the thing about Malcolm Hartzog. If he just had a little bit more size, he would be absolutely dominant.
Yeah, because he's a tough dude, and he's been a playmaker for his entire career. So, all right, you guys. Well, we're coming up on that time, so thanks for joining us for this chat. We'll be back with another episode and some more episodes later this week. Probably another chat on Saturday, and we'll have some other content. So thanks if you're watching on the replay, or if you've been following us on social media. If you do subscribe to us, thank you. But if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comments section, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.